As you may have noticed, it's chucking it down out there. According to the forecast, parts of the UK can expect a month's worth of rain in the next 48 hours. Remember the Met Office told us this would be a dry time? I think they got that wrong. It's what makes the British summer great, of course, but for many whose homes are at risk of flood, the threatened downpour is serious stuff. And it could get worse if a deal on flood insurance between the government and the industry expires next year. Here's Len Tingle, our political editor in Yorkshire.
Jason Taylor demonstrates new flood defences just fitted to his front door. Effective, he hopes, to keep out a foot or so of water. But 5 years ago, this is what happened to his street in Darfield, just outside Barnsley in South Yorkshire. The River Dearne burst its banks twice in a week. Locals rescued by boat. Waves up to 5 feet high burst through doors, destroying everything inside. No warning, as there hadn't been a single flood here since the 1950s. The Environment Agency says it can't reduce the risk of it happening again to less than once every 25 years. That's a risk too far for insurance companies.
I can't be covered for the flood unless I pay a premium, maybe £800, £900 more.
It could be far worse. Across all flood-hit areas, a temporary deal between government and insurers is keeping existing cover in place, though at a price. That deal runs out next year, and the insurers want a new one, with government agreeing to underwrite property in the highest risk areas, but also ensuring effective spend on flood defences to manage the risk.
If we ever manage to get insurance again.
That's where Richard Benyon comes in. He's the Floods Minister. Last week, he toured some of the latest areas to be inundated. Here, Hebden Bridge, near Halifax in West Yorkshire.
We are reducing the spending over 4 years by 6%, but against cutting in my department a spending of 30%. That shows there's a real priority for this. So it's, broadly speaking, spending similar amounts as the previous government did, because we're spending the money smarter, and we are making flood defences an absolute priority.
A couple of days later, the Prime Minister visited the neighbouring town of Todmorden with a clear message for the insurers.
Longer term, we need another deal with the insurance companies so that they do what it says on the tin. Insurance, they provide people with cover against flooding.
We're going to become uninsurable.
Labour warns of a looming insurance crisis. At a flood summit held in Hull, also badly hit in 2007, there were claims government spending cuts are far deeper than admitted.
We know that spending on flood defences was cut by this government by nearly 30%, down from 354 million in 2010 to just 250 million for each of the next 4 years, nearly a 30% cut. The insurance industry have accepted that, but they've said, don't expect us to take up the risk.
As the politicians and insurers wrangle, the tide of fear and uncertainty grows. These pictures, taken by one of the many worried residents in Hebden Bridge last month, must have made many reach for their insurance policies. The fear is that if there's a next time, those policies might not exist.
Len Tingle there, and Aidan Kerr, who's head of property at the Association of British Insurers, joins us now. Welcome to the Daily. Politics up. If the current agreement runs out, it's not replaced, will you simply stop insuring those at most risk?
Well, first of all, insurers are committed to continue to insure those at flood risk. But the fact is that flood risk is increasing over time. So what we're working on with government is trying to find a way to continue to have flood insurance.
that, but if you don't get the agreement with government, will you stop insuring them?
That's not easy to say. I mean,
Well, it's either yes or no.
Well, insurance will always be available, but as the risk increases, the cost of insurance will go up. So the issue is not so much about availability, but it's about how well people can afford to actually buy it.
I think if I was in the floodplain, I'd take that as a no. Does the government need to ensure no household in the UK becomes uninsurable? If it does, what does it need to do?
I think it's a joint responsibility between the government and the insurance industry.
So what are you looking for from the government? What does it need to pony up for you to be able to continue insuring?
Well, the government needs to work with the insurance industry, as they have been doing so far.
Yeah, but what does it need to do?
Well, it needs to work with us to develop a model. We developed a model which we're looking to agree with government, that develops a kind of pooling system that allows for those most at risk to be supported by the market more widely.
But if you have a pooling system, at the end of the day, aren't the taxpayers going to be on the line for this rather than the insurance companies?
Well, the insurance companies would continue to hold the risk for the majority of those at risk of flooding. It's a standard part of property insurance, of home insurance. So the insurance industry would still hold on to a lot of the risk.
There's always a risk of flooding, isn't there? I mean, every year, I was interviewing a meteorologist just last week, and he was saying that, you know, every year we have this conversation at some point, oh, look how much rain, it's rained 10 years worth in 3 days or something. That risk is always there, and you guys kind of pick and choose where and you want to pay and who you don't want to insure. It seems there's almost a cartel of its own going on in the insurance industry, isn't it?
Well, insurance is still, for most people, very affordable. Flood insurance is part of a standard home insurance package, and where flooding has happened, people still can get their insurance renewed. The issue with the current agreement is that there's no stipulation about how much that will cost. So what we're looking to do now with government...
In other words, you don't want to take the risk.
Well, insurers take the risk as part of their natural business.
You don't want to take the risk.
Amber's parents are currently moving their books, you were telling me, upstairs because where do they live?
St Ives in Cambridgeshire.
So they fear a flood risk. What would you say?
I mean, the problem with this is there are 5.2 million homes at risk of flooding, according to the Environment Agency, and the government is planning to cut flood defences by up to 27% by 2015. So you have a situation where the last government agreed a deal where they would keep up flood defences in return for insurance companies subsidising people whose homes are at risk. But we have a situation now where this government isn't that keen on that idea. They're a bit more free market about it. They quite like the idea of pushing it a little bit more, which leaves people, as of next year, in a difficult situation. You buy annual flood insurance, and in a year's time, they don't know whether that's going to happen.
Just yes or no, do you think you will get a deal with the government in the end?
I certainly hope so.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Now, this week, scientists and